Welcome, everyone. I'm Beth Denham, for those of you who don't know me. And my husband, Tim Denham, and I actually are both U of L graduates. We actually met at U of L at the Old Cardinal Inn. And I am a two-time U of L graduate. My undergraduate was in sociology, my master's in public administration. And I spent a lot of time here in the Red Barn when I was a student, as did Tim. I was also in the Pi Beta Phi sorority, and I was the Cardinal Bird mascot after Kelly Everman, because I know many of you all knew Kelly. So I am the executive director of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. I've worked in nonprofits since I graduated from U of L, and I just started teaching this event planning class in the fall. So this is our first semester. I have 10 students, a couple who are missing this evening, and we are just delighted that the Red Barn opened their doors to us, and all of you took time out of your schedule to share your story and your history of the Red Barn. So on behalf of my students from Event Planning 301, we thank you for having us here. And as a small token of my appreciation, I bought you all this yummy pizza and there's soft drinks, and thank you for the water, Kenny. And then I had cookies ordered, which I'm terribly disappointed in. They didn't come out the way they were supposed to. But I sent them the Red Barn logo, but for some reason they came out blue. I have no idea why. But they still taste yummy, so please still enjoy them. And again, welcome, and I look forward to you all sharing your knowledge and experience with our event planning class.
Okay, Judy and Gary Steely, raise your hand. Okay, if it were not for Gary Steely, I would not be here today.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on. Believe it or not. Wow.
Really?
Working at West Virginia University a long time ago, I met Gary Steely in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. In the summer of 1969, where we were attending an acting workshop. Gary was the driving force in my becoming the first director of student activities on July 1st, 1970. For that, Gary, I'm eternally grateful. Judy and Gary were married, lived in apartments in Miller Hall. In 1969, and Gary administered Greek affairs and advised the SAB, the Dean of Students Office. As undergraduate, Judy was a CIO and Gary was a DU. It was Gary and Harold Adams, with the help of Louis Walker, and with us tonight, who produced and directed the very first event at the Red Barn, which was a concert featuring your father's mustache, way back in 1969. Judy and Gary are both retired and enjoyed distinguished careers in education. Judy taught English at Jefferson High School and JCC. Gary taught for 35 years at Webster University, and also taught in Jeffersonville and Louisville, and also taught at IUS. It was Gary who revived the DU chapter U of L, which now is alive and well with 32 members. We do appreciate very much Gary's extraordinary contribution to the existence of the Red Barn, and we appreciate very much Judy and Gary shared it with us the very first event at the Red Barn. They have two kids, Katie and Matt. Matt lives in Louisville, in Old County, and Katie lives in Atlanta. Okay? Gary's going to tell us about that first event at the Red Barn. Thank you, Gary.
I have to apologize for understanding probably the only person in the room older than me is the Moose. The Moose was in the Dean of Students office in 1964 when I went to work there. So the other thing that we've noticed, my wife and I were dorm parents in Threepwood Hall, which is no longer here. So right off the bat, we had a hard time finding a place where we noticed that this was U of L. It's always a good thing to have a reference point, and the Red Barn is now our reference point. We lived in Threepwood Hall as dorm parents, and in 1966 we moved to Miller Hall, and I understand the Miller Hall is going to be torn down next year. So this place is changing very, very rapidly. And George asked me to say a few words about the very first event at the Red Barn in 1969. And one of the things that I was fortunate enough to be living in Louisville all my life, so I had a bachelor's degree from U of L, a master's degree in counseling and guidance, and then in 1969, I made a decision to go to Indiana University to get a doctorate in education. So one of the things that I thought would be good is to find a replacement for my job at U of L. And that's been my legacy, as I found a guy named George Howe. And the rest of that story is a long tradition here at U of L, and just so many events in this unbelievable building. The first time I was in this building, and there was a street out here, and there was a Cardinal Inn across the street. What's the name of that street out there? Floyd? Yeah, it probably was. But one of the things that was unique about Floyd Street was that made this event over here possible, because this was not on U of L property. Thus, we opened the door to serving alcoholic beverages. There were three very important hurdles that I had to overcome. Number one was talking Dean Lawrence into approving of the project, and along with his legacy of living in Red Barn as a result of his approval, he also left us the legacy of Jennifer Lawrence, his granddaughter, who I even tried to get her to come to the 50th anniversary, but she got married. So Lady Lawrence said yes. Then another good friend of ours, Sharon Andrews, who was Millimeter Projectors, great man. He was a very great negotiator. And I asked him to go to Frankfurt to get an AAC license. And he said, God, okay, we got that done. The other thing was, this building was not approved for the fire codes, and I was a member of Lyndhurst United Church of Christ in South End, and it just so happened I was on the church council with a man named Earl Brown, who was the fire department chief. So those three events kind of happened in sequence, which made things roll pretty good. And my wife and I were downtown one evening at a place called the Wooden Nickel. And if any of you ever heard of it, they were great back then for bluegrass music and just great fun time with red and white tablecloths on 4th Street. And I heard a group called Your Father's Mustache. And I said, that'd be a great group to get on the Louisville campus. And at the time I was doing promotion for U of L's homecoming events, and went to a national entertainment conference in West Virginia, which had, again, was another one of those coincidences. I was like, coincidence, God's way of maintaining anonymity. And lo and behold, I met a man there who we were in charge of putting on a party for the last night at the organization. And George and I ended up finding some really good spots in West Virginia. What was the name of the town, George?
West Virginia, George. West Virginia.
What town was it?
Morgantown.
Morgantown.
Yeah, home of Bob Hodge. And will be Pittsburgh.
So we had a good time down there, and I ended up inviting George to come to U of L and apply for my positions. I was leaving, invited him and his wife at the time, Judy Howe, and we had them as our guests at the Derby. And George came walking by this building and took him inside, and there was an old office for Caldwell Tank on the end down here, which is no longer there, but George says, this is a super facility. This would be a great place to have a party. And that was the beginning of having a concert here with Your Father's Mustache. Still remember the red, white tablecloths and Dean Lawrence back here. My wife was also part of that celebration. And this past summer we celebrated 57 years of marriage. So it all began here at the barn.
Louis and Louise have together lived the entire 52-year history of the Red Barn. And we will share their legacy with you during this class. It won't take very long. If it weren't for Louis, we wouldn't be here tonight. Louis has kindly agreed to share with us how the Red Barn came to be. Go ahead, Louis. Take it away. Yeah.
So there I was sitting my little radio station in the dorm, not bothering anybody.
And I hear that they're going to have something over here in this building on practically the other side of the railroad tracks. And I said, so what's that got to do with me? Well, you're the only person we don't figure out how anything works. So we've got this generator, we've got this building, and there are light bulbs in the ceiling. Don't look up there, they're long gone. But it was a factory where they made water towers. And over there was a conduit that held down, 4 wires were hanging out of the end. And I'm like, when exactly does this show? In about 3 hours. I said, what if the bulbs are burned out? Who's going to climb up there? We got lucky. I hooked it all up, all the lights came on, and we said, don't touch anything, we're going to run the show. So I'm just a guy, I had nothing to do with any of this, except that I was there watching the generator all night. They let me in free. None of this show, you need to know, was comedy, kind of slapstick, Dixieland jazz, and lots of beer. Now, none of us guys drink much. We just kind of sat and watched the party. So when the whole thing wrapped up and the touring group packed up and left, it was 11 o'clock at night and the whole thing was over. Everybody left, the 3 of us. We got our legal pads and said, if this was so good for tonight, think what it would be like if we had it forever. U of L did not have a student center. It literally had no place to put up a card table that a student could call home. If you could beg or borrow one from some department, but they cancel you in a heartbeat. I once wrote a $40,000 check to a band that didn't have to perform because we lost Big Little Hall the afternoon before our show. Anyway, by 6 o'clock in the morning, we had figured out what all we had to know to change this, legal status, building codes, everything. And we each made copies and handed it to the 3 people. And it fell to me to call Dr. Strickler, the president of the university, up at home on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. This was okay because he had known me since I was 3.
Can you imagine calling it Neely?
What's that? What's that?
I was telling them, can they imagine just calling it Neely at 3 o'clock?
Well, but it was a different time. It was not a state school. It was a little dinky. It was bigger than a high school, but not as big as JCC in those days. And if you were the Dean of Arts and Sciences, you had a good chance of being president before you died. I mean, that was kind of how it worked. And so it really was, everybody saw the president every day on the sidewalk. Half the time he's sitting talking to people. So, you know, it was a little more, it was small and wonderful in a certain way. Anyway, so he says, well, I said, you know how we don't have a student center? We don't have a square foot to call our own? I said, it ain't pretty, but I've got an idea. And he says, how much money is this going to cost? I said, number 1, we don't own the property yet. Number 2, the budget is $12,000. And so everybody by Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon had another meeting and decided this might actually work. The big problem was getting urban renewal to give us the property. That itself was okay. But with the building still on it, it was technically illegal. Because it had to be torn down like what they did west of 4th Street on the way down to the west end. They tore it, it was scorched earth, and took everything. Well, we managed to save this and another little building down here that didn't work out. So the university got the money. We got urban renewal people to sign off on this. Urban renewal didn't want to, but the letters from the 2 U.S. senators helped. We knew them too. Okay, so here we've got this place. It's now December the 15th. It was 15 degrees below 0 the day I started working in here. There was no electricity, no heat, no lighting, no nothing. And at 15 below 0, I'm nailing windows shut with plywood, trying to stop the wind. Anyway, this thing actually progressed, and I'm not going to bore you all with details. A lot of people helped us. The frats came over, and they helped us carry all the garbage out. The one story I always forget to tell, but it's probably the best story of all, is this place had about 15,000 pounds of dead bats in it.
Dead what?
Bass.
Oh, dead
Well, 100 years accumulation of being open, they came in here and they died. And so every time we moved something, things would clump to the ground. So I went to the fire department, just imagine doing this. I'm from the University of Louisville, I'd like to borrow 2 fire hoses in a hydrant wrench. Now who are you again? Loaded my car, if I were, hooked it up to the fire hydrants, as we're cutting stuff out of the ceiling that we didn't want, like big pipes. Acetylene torches. You had to get above them, so when you cut it, it would fall away from you. Walked beams and cut things loose. No safety harnesses or even that. Anyway, cut them loose. Anyway, so at some point, everything that could leave was gone. But there was still more bats up there. So I'm up there with a fire hose, hosing off anything horizontal, and it's raining bats. And then they're about 6 inches thick on the floor. And so finally I get enough water moving that the bats kind of go out the door, go down the storm sewer, away somewhere. Anyway, so the fire department was nice to us. A lot of people were nice to us. I actually managed to get this place going, sort of. Had electricity, it was boarded up, you could lock things inside when you stole it. Along the way, one of the disc jockeys comes to me from the main stations, and he says, there's this guy, you all know who what's his name?
Ronnie Mills.
Ronnie Millsap is.
I do.
Well, he's blind. He's blind and his country music kid. Okay, well, I've never heard of him. Well, that's because no one else had ever heard of him either. His disc jockey was his friend. And he says, Ronnie just needs some place to reverse. I said, so okay, what do you want? Well, he says, I've seen the barn, and now that you've got the PA, Ronnie Millsap sat on a stool down at that end for weeks, performing, learning to work in an environment where he can't see anything. So he's holding on here. I come over here and I hear music. There's no lights on. Of course not. So I go up to him and I said, we're going to be using the saw, man. Like, oh, don't worry about it. Just keep on going. I'll just sing louder. Okay, great. So Ronnie Millsap actually got his start in the barn, believe it or not. So how's that little career?
Louis,
So the end of the story is, what?
The song they would know would be Feliz Navidad. It's a Christmas carol they sing. Song.
That's not Ronnie Millsap.
That's Jose Feliciano.
That's Jose Feliciano.
Thank you.
Old trivia. Anyway, the end of the story is I'm packing up all my stuff in May of 1970. My tools, everything that's mine, I'm loading my car, which is inside the barn. And Gary Steele walks in, 4 or 5 people. I knew Gary, I didn't know the rest of the people so much. And I met, as I was leaving, George Howe was walking in. And here he was, you know, this is 50 years ago, better than that, 51. So anyway, so there's that. That's kind of how it got going. The opening night, we had William Cuss from the Chicago 7 attorney, who I thought had as much right to speak here as anybody else did. That's what universities are about. But the funny part was the town fathers didn't agree with that, and they rolled the riot police out in case there was an uprising, which I thought U of L would be a healthy thing. Nothing ever happens here. Anyway, after the bomb scare, we ran everybody off and ran the movie Camelot. The difference between this guy and this guy is just unbelievable. That was opening night. Oh,
That's a bridge.
yeah, here's, I told it once tonight. We had no electricity in here to work. So one of my jobs was to get an electrical contractor to allow me to use his license so that I could install power in here. Well, that took time, and building codes and permits and all that. So I ran an extension cord. I'll have to admit, it was as big around as that mic. From the thing across the street, tied a knot around a telephone pole, ran it across the street, tied a knot around another telephone pole, ran it in the barn, plugged all the lights and the drill and saw in there so that we could work it. And that cord stayed across that street for 3 months. Floyd Street, and it was open with cars.
Yeah. Used to be a four-way stop right up there.
Next.
Hey, George, you.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Thank you for starting the Red Barn 52 years ago. Now, Louise, raise your hand, Louise. Louise was also at the Red Barn that night. There's 4 people who were at the Red Barn that night. Gary and Judy, Louise and Lou,
And a few other people.
and a few other people.
300 of our closest
Yeah.
friends.
Yes.
None of which are here that we know of. Okay, Louise, much of the Red Barn history involves the establishment of endowments and gift accounts, all to benefit U of L students. Endowments will be there forever. Gift accounts, if you put the money in a gift account, you spend it, it's gone. So they're both good. It was in this spirit that Louis and Louise provided a major gift to U of L in the amount of $75,000 in the year 2010. Establishing the Louis W. and Louise Weiser, Ward Weiser, Student Emergency Fund Endowment and Program. Louise has kindly agreed to share her knowledge of this incredible program benefiting U of L students in need. Thank you, Louise.
You're welcome. I was a teacher, so hopefully I'm loud enough. Let me know if I'm not. One of the things you have to remember about the barn is that everybody, all the students who work in the barn were volunteers. Nobody get paid for this. And it was run, and the barn was begun with the idea that everybody is welcome here. And that is very important to remember. And you have a long legacy of people just willing to help, willing to volunteer. You'll hear about the Red Barn Alumni Association later, but at one of our meetings, George brought up the fact that this student, his apartment was flooded out and he needed some money. And so we passed the hat. And that was something that we did just about every Red Barn alumni meeting. And so Louis and I thought, you know, what we really need is to establish a student emergency fund. And the idea was that, let's say your dorm got flooded, or you had an emergency and you just needed some money, that you could apply at the Dean of Students' office, and he would give you the money. This was not a scholarship; it was something that you needed, with the idea of later, when the student is in the position, he can then pay it forward. We were paying it forward. The idea they could pay it forward. So in 2010, we established the Bornwasser Student Emergency Fund, and we have no idea who applies. All we know is that we're watching over it, and when we watch over it and make sure that it's healthy and that it continues. Little did we know that the pandemic would hit, and just what a wonderful idea the Student Emergency Fund was. I think quite a few students were helped with by either ours or an adjacent Student Emergency Fund. So it was established with $75,000, and hopefully it will be around for a very, very long time, helping students. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you. Okay, our next presenter is a dear friend of ours as well. Her name is Mary Jo White, to my right. Mary Jo has been a dear friend of the Red Barn for the past 44 years, dating back to 1977 to 1979, when Mary Jo was a graduate assistant at the Red Barn, and has lived to tell about it. Mary Jo's 2 years experience back then at the Red Barn included hosting a wine and cheese party at the quite infamous Red Barn room in Louisville's own Tim Krekel, who showcased at the National NACA Conference in Kansas City, Missouri. Mary Jo's 37-year tenure at the U of L included being Director of Student Affairs for the medical school for 25 years, preceded by 9 years at the law school where she met her husband Tim, in 3 years in the mission. Mary Jo and Ginger Brown, who's going to speak, have been best friends and colleagues since their undergraduate days at U of L in 1970. Mary Jo, we do much appreciate your life and service to the RBA and to Red Barn and for sharing your time with us. Mary Jo has gone and kind of shared with us saving the Red Barn for the second time and the renovation of the Red Barn, and believe it or not, the University of Louisville receiving an award from the Preservation Alliance for saving the Red Barn. Mary Jo White.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, you all will probably be able to hear me. I can talk pretty damn loud. Anyway, another piece of information. Beth Denham and I go way back. Her daughter and my daughter actually went to school together. But as part of my history, before Beth and whomever, I was also the cardinal bird many years ago.
Surrounded by birds.
Yeah, so I've been here for quite some time in various and different,
Her picture, y'all, is also on the wall of the University Club. When we did our University Club tour, Mary Jo's picture is displayed there as well.
yes, I was chairman of one of the board. I was first woman chairman of the university. Not of the board, of the university. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about when we saved the Red Barn in the 1970s. And at this point in time, I was a graduate assistant at the Red Barn working for George. And our offices were across Floyd Street in what we call the pit, next door to the art studio, where they had, you've seen comments on television where they have the guys or girls come out in robes and then they pose for artists. Well, that was right across the street, right next door to our office.
And the post office.
And the post office was there too, so it was quite an interesting route there. But our offices were right across the street in the pit. And this is a quote from an art. A lot of this information comes from an article that was written in the National Association for Campus Activities Programming magazine, and this goes back to 2011. In the mid-70s, U of L architects Dave Lee and Harry Sparks took an interest in the Red Barn with a notion to help the students in U of L save and expand and fully renovate the Red Barn. In the old days, this was the front, and that was the back. When they renovated it, they turned it around, and of course, we can't figure out why they did that, but they did it anyway. The campaign to save the Red Barn began and received overwhelming support from the community at large. There were bumper stickers to save the Red Barn. They were distributed, you saw them everywhere. There were editorials in support of saving the facility, and it appeared in the school and local newspapers. The state gave $350,000 for this renovation, which began in 1978. We had a new entrance, office, restrooms, green room, stage, and projection booth were built. The grand opening of the renovated Red Barn was held in January 1979, and the official dedication of the new Red Barn occurred on March 30th. On May 15th, 1979, at that time, our Vice President of Student Affairs was Dr. Ed Hammond, and George accepted a Preservation Alliance Award that reads, and I'm going to read it right off of 1979. The University of Louisville has made a significant contribution to the preservation of campus heritage. The university successfully expanded and renovated the Red Barn in an architectural manner sympathetic to the original design. The Preservation Alliance, its board of directors and trustees, and its members organizations salute the University of Louisville for preserving the Red Barn, long important as a student cultural center. And this is part of the recognition, and it was also in an article in the Courier Journal the next day, May 16, 1979.
Good job, Mary Jo. Thank you, Mary Jo. Give it up. Okay, our next presenter is a dear friend as well, Paul Voldemire. Raise your hand, Paul. Paul is one of the 7 founders of the RBA back in 1985. He's been a most active RBA member and contributed for the past 36 years. It was Paul who, as the new USA chairman, that's like the Student Activities Board chairman, in May of 1979, wrote to the head of ABC Sports. This was before ESPN, but they helped start ESPN. ABC Sports ruined Arledge, he was a very famous person. And Paul invited him to bring a show to the Red Barn for a concert as part of the 106th Kentucky Derby. And the logo for that show is up there behind you all, in top of the Red Barn Programs office, where Kenny's office is now. So they left that for us. Paul, we very much appreciate your life and service to the Army AA and to the Red Barn. Paul will now share with us his most iconic event ever at the Red Barn, featuring a concert on national television with the late and great Dan Vogelberg. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, George. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I'm not going to go through a lot of things and what have you. Ruin Arledge was the guy who invented what I call entertainment sports. There was no sporting events on at night, unlike now where you're going to have the Super Bowl at night or going to have the playoffs at night. Ruin Arledge was that guy who came up with that. That particular event in broadcast circles is really a very tight group because of who was there. It was just not Fogelberg. The producer was a guy named Terry O'Neill, who went on to become the executive producer of NBC Sports. I ended up working with him again on the Breeders' Cup series of races. The director was Roger Goodman, and we crossed paths when I did the vice presidential debates down at Center College. And there was another guy named Mike Pearl, and Mike Pearl is the guy who came up with the infamous pregame show. It's game day, pre-games that you see and everything. All those people were here. When a show like that comes in, there is probably about 150 people attached to it. And we had as many people outside the Red Barn as we had inside on the technical side, putting this together and everything. It was just a magic time and an element where we were able to do that. A couple of things that I walked away from that. Number one was a guy named Harvey Calvin introduced me to the phrase of never ask permission, ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I think that's something when you're in event management and putting things together, you have to understand and make that a part of your mantra. And you have to be right when you do that as well. We ended up having these wonderful musicians here, and they came to me and said on Thursday night, you mind if we jam in the Red Barn after rehearsal? Which was a very quick yes. And we invited our friends and things, and we had probably one of the best house bands ever on that stage. And putting that together, they brought session people in from Nashville, etc. The one thing with the Red Barn and your all's careers and things, what you have to understand is maybe the power of the ruby slippers and the magic that comes with them. You have to look at something, figure it out, make an assessment, and see how you can take that and create an opportunity for yourselves. And that will come with any event that you get involved in going forward and things. It's just part of what happened in this building. Not unlike the other buildings on campus where they have labs and test tubes and things, we did experiments here, we did things here, and sometimes they worked out, sometimes they didn't. So far you haven't heard about any of the ones that didn't work out, but there were more than a few failures at the box office and elsewhere. But that's part of the business and part of understanding of what you guys may be getting into. The concert was well publicized, it was well viewed. I'm guessing probably 16 million people experienced the Red Barn that night. And that's probably a very low-end estimate on that and everything. So can't really say too much about the other guys I worked with. Was Joe Potts and Doug Orr and Stuart Knapp and what have you. We actually had the technical people here, along with Lewis, access to Lewis, that could put together things. They actually brought in others, Johnny Rosen and different people, but it was an amazing collection of people who ended up putting that show together. And it was, I think, just a very special night all the way around with the music that was introduced and what have you. Real quick, does anybody have any questions or anything? We haven't asked any feedback from you all. We've talked at you, but we haven't said thoughts, comments, or anything. Okay, George, back to you.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of people who are here. Just raise your hands. Michael Cohen. He's the vice president of the RBAA, has been for years. He also serves on the scholarship committee. I'd also like to introduce Ted Williams. He's been a member of the RBA for 36 years and has done a tremendous amount as well. At this time, I told you who she was, and she helped with the tour. Her name is Julia Nembo. She's one of our dearest friends. And she's going to tell you about the Crawfish Boil, 36 years of Crawfish Boil. We missed one that we did virtually because of COVID. Here, Julie, thank you.
All right, who likes crawfish? Okay. Who has never tasted crawfish? Okay. Who likes corn on the cob? Sausage?
Yeah.
Potatoes? Okay. Crawfish boil. Kenny, I don't know where he went. I don't know the exact date, but it always happens the Friday night prior to Thunder over Louisville. So if you know when Thunder over Louisville is, that Friday night, come to the Red Barn. We do a crawfish boil here. So this is an event that's current that you can participate in. It's been around for 36 years. The first one was 1985. But when you come, it's $5, all you can eat. So if you don't like the crawfish, you don't have to eat the crawfish. But there's the potatoes and the sausage, the atmosphere. Definitely mark it on your calendars for the Friday of Thunder. So, the Crawfish Boil was started by the Student Activities Board, and it was the adult committee that started this because the person that was the chair of that committee, her dad owned a crawfish farm in South Carolina, and all that he wanted to be paid was a night in the Brown Hotel, a case of Heineken, and he brought up tons of crawfish to have at the first Crawfish Boil. It actually took place not in the barn, but it was over in Threcold parking lot, which is now where the Shoemaker building is. But Dr. Bowen, and he also is enshrined in one of the plaques, the one that's underneath the 20 years of the Red Barn alumni. That was his last Crawfish Boil. He came out with his wife and his daughter Charlotte and was showing the students how to open the crawfish and was just the greatest guy. Unfortunately, he passed 2 weeks after that picture was taken. So one of his last times was in the Red Barn. Also, underneath the other plaque is a picture of Charlotte. So we do enshrine our folks here that take place and work with us here with these events. The Dave Ball, I don't know if any of you know him, who works at the university. He has cooked in 35 of the 36 crawfish boils. Back in the day, Dave Ball would hop in a van and drive to South Carolina and then later on to Louisiana, pick up however many hundreds of pounds of crawfish, get back in the car, drive back, and then cook for the rest of the day. And that's how we used to get our crawfish. It came live from the bayou. It was often muddy. Now we get it from Bluefin Tuna, which is down in the city. So it's a little bit cleaner, but still they're live and they're fresh. Dave Ball writes that through the years, many people have participated in the production of the Crawfish Boil, and in many ways they feel like family. Along with Dr. Bowen, Charlotte, Gary, and Thea, Dr. Tom Sleemaker of the dental school, and the late Freddie Krieger have been staunch supporters. SAB Spirit and Traditions Committee continues to be the front and center of planning the production of the event, and many students and alumni have been instrumental in planning the event over the years. The one thing about the Crawfish Boil, if you are involved with SAB or know of SAB, the Crawfish Boil is the last event of the current year's Student Activities Board, and it's the first event of the next year's board. So the Crawfish Boil is the one event that every member who's ever been a Student Activities Board member in the past 36 years worked. So it is very special. Also at the Crawfish Boil, we give an award to the Crawdaddy Award, and it's kind of hidden behind coat racks, but there's also a running plaque of many crawdaddies. It was originally named for George, who was the king of the crawdads. So we hope that you all, on April, what's the date, do you remember? You can look it up. But again, Friday before Thunder, come here, $5, bring your $5, all you can eat. If you never tasted crawdads, you may want to come here because it's delicious when it's boiled with everything. But then again, we also have red beans and rice, so if you're a vegan or vegetarian, and hot dogs. If you're just not in the crawfish. Yeah. 22nd, April 22nd. Put that in your books right now, and be here in the Red Barn. $5 all you can eat.
Thank you, Julie.
Talk about the calls.
Okay, we're moving on, guys. You've been very patient. The next presenter is Jimmy Snyder. Raise your hand, Jimmy. Jimmy is one of the 7 founders of the RBAA and the president of the RBAA. With the RBAA leadership team, have achieved extraordinary success for the past 36 years, all to benefit people like you all, students, U of L students. Representing the RBA, Jimmy served on the U of L Alumni Board for 17 years, from 97 to 2014. Jimmy graduated twice, once from U of L, once from Bellarmine. Best description of what Jimmy and all the present, past, and future officers and members of the RBA meant to U of L for the past 36 years, clearly stated on this broad plate you can see over to my left, marking wrong. That is on the Red Barn Walls of Fame, which was placed there for the dedication of the Red Barn on December 7, 2007. Quote, the RBA is one of the university's most active alumni clubs and has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for various Red Barn programs, including scholarship funds for countless students. Unquote. Jimmy, we very much appreciate your life and service to the RBA and the Red Barn. Jimmy is going to share with us the phenomenal history, short history of the Red Barn Alumni Association, which we call the RBAA. Thank you, Jimmy.
And just to go through a little bit of the start of Red Barn alumni, how we got started, some of the things we've done to raise all this funds. There are many events here at Red Barn. I guess we go to most of them at Red Barn, and with golf. So back in 1985, I got a call, I guess, all those fire down here. And he and Mike Ruckriegel and Tom Wood intended to know their health mind. We're all going to have a meeting at Mike's house. And they were interested in starting the Red Barn one. So at the time, there was no Red Barn meant so much to some people. There was no Red Barn alumni. So we all got together at Mike's house. We decided it would be a good idea. We wanted, really the goal of that first night was just to make sure the Red Barn continued on as the Red Barn. It was also to raise funds to augment George's budget for physical things going on, like tables, chairs, spotlights, whatever George needed to make his budget a little bit shorter. So we got a hold of George, and we decided to ask person to kind of lead us through the process of becoming a full-fledged alumni would be George. So we got a hold of George. A couple of weeks later, we had an organizational meeting here at the Red Barn. And I remember we had about 15 or 20 people, I would say, that were here that time. And that kind of got the ball rolling. And from that point on, we started having weekly meetings of that core group of people to decide what we were going to do, how we were going to raise the funds. We had our first meetings in Tappan, of all places, and we took some of our fundraising money. We ended up, our organization was paying the whole tab. So we have like 10 people sitting there. So we're running up this tab. So our organization got off a really slow start financially because it started off with debt. Running up the tab out there at Captain's Quarters. So finally we decided that maybe we shouldn't go to Captain's Quarters. We need to go to a cheaper place. We needed to have everybody to start. So once we did that, we kind of reversed our plan. And so as time went on, we started doing some events. We did a few events here at Red Barn, and we started a golf tournament. We started a day of races. I'm just trying to think of all of we sold football fields in the parking lot, the old Cardinal Stadium. Believe it or not, we made a lot of money on that. We had an annual high school dance team for our sales years. So we sent an annual high school dance team out to the parking lot of Cardinal Stadium. They sold a lot of things. So we made a lot of money off that. So we got really pretty well with all that. And in the meantime, George started identifying a lot of scholarship opportunities. It turned out George's budget was handled the bar, for the most part. George comes to us, George started identifying a bunch of scholarship opportunities for our kids. So that's when we kind of changed the focus of our fundraising to scholarships. So what we started doing is we started taking the proceeds of our fundraising, the golf tournament, golf slam every year. We did that for about 20-something years. We still do, but we have to get back to the post-pandemic. We do a day of the races, Churchill Downs, up on Millimeter Projectors. We used to get about 80 people for that. We made a lot of money off that over the years. We've done that since the early 90s. The Crawfish Boil, we co-sponsored the Crawfish Boil. What else? We've done numerous events here at the Red Barn for more like one-off events. Come up with that band here. We had it live lunch. We even had a couple. I know we had Bobby Watson, George, remember this Bobby Watson retirement party, which I think that one was the party that had all parties in this building. We made a lot of money off that one. Bobby knew a lot of people, and they all showed up that night. We sold 1,000 beers that night. It's the only time we never ran out of beer. George had to go to Expressway Liquors. I don't know, we bought about 10 or 12 packs of beer. We sold all that beer. We ended up, the party kind of ended when we ran out of beer. So those are some of the things we've done over the years to raise money. They were all events. So I guess if I have one piece of advice for all of you, all the events we all participated in here, golf courses, Churchill Downs, wherever they may be. I think the one key to it was attention to detail. And I know George took the lead on planning a lot of that, and that's what George is so good at. Attention to detail, leaving no stone unturned, prepare for the event, so we minimize things that can go wrong. And I I've got to say that over the years, other than running out of beer, which never happened before or after, we were always prepared for these events. I cannot remember any major problems we ever had with these events. It was preparation for something. So that's something that you often take away from the session. I think the second thing take away from it is if you're ever involved with a group like ours, one night group, fundraising group, whatever it is, make the meetings fun. Don't have to meet board group or as twice. Make the meetings fun. And that's what we've done. We've only had maybe 3 meetings out in the Red Barn. All of our other meetings have been Captain's Quarters, Shacks, Cardinal Hall of Fame Cafe, JK's, that's right, JK's.
Brown bag.
Brown bag. Yeah, that's another fundraiser too, is Red Barn. That's really the only event, it's one of the few times you get all of this in Red Barn. But I think the thing that's made this organization so successful is made our meetings fun. And that's why we have it in Shacks. We're currently having our meetings in Shacks. Everybody can get something to eat, drink beer, whatever they want to drink. And we make our meetings very informative, make it fun. I've been asked, I was on the alumni board for 17 years, been on that board for 17 years. And some of those people asked me how we were so successful, because really I was told that one meeting, the only club that outraised us for scholarship is the Tampa Bay alumni. That is a big organization. They have like 200 or 300 active members. They have really big scholarship. But our group is second. Raised the second most scholarship in any alumni group. At least has maybe 7 or 8 people. So I think the key to our success is to keep everybody interested. Because we have fun at our meetings. We have fun at our meetings. So I think that's one thing we don't take anything away from our DNA and our involvement. Make the events fun, make the meetings fun. Keep everybody engaged. So anyway, that's kind of the story of how the Red Barn got started. The Red Barn alumni got started. How we raised the money. Some of the stuff we're doing today. We're still doing the back as soon as we can do it. Back to the day of places. We do a tailgate party for every home game. Back to that year. We do a football and basketball game watch. Not about that, we make pretty good money off those things too. February, our next one is February 5th. We made as much as $1,000 these game watch. We do one for football, one for basketball. And I know pre-pandemic, the last one we had, we made $1,000. So these things are really good successful. So we're going to get back to that stuff now. And we're always trying to brainstorm some new events. Sometimes some fall by the wayside. And we just continue because we're so hard to put together. Or our constituency events. Sometimes you just have to have a few events like that. Held for a while. And, it's just kind of waiting and working with activity. You always have to be flexible. So, in any case, that's sort of the RDA.
Any questions?
Well said. Okay, our next presenter is a dear friend of the Red Barn, of course. Her name is Ginger Brown. Like her dear friend and colleague Mary Jo White, Ginger has become a dear friend of the Red Barn for more than 40 years, dating back to when she was a student at U of L.
Thanks, George.
Ginger's 40-year tenure at U of L included her first 8 years in admission. In the past 32, still counting, criminal justice, where Ginger advises students and directs and provides student services to meet the needs for many criminal justice students. For the past 28 years, dating back to 1993, Ginger has unselfishly and miraculously, and we do mean miraculously, chaired the RBA and George Fair Scholarship Committee for the RBAA and the Red Barn. Her husband's here tonight. His name is David Mundy.
David Wade.
He's retired and enjoyed a distinguished career in corrections and the Kentucky Army National Guard with the rank of State Command Sergeant Major. That's David Mundy. Wonderful person. Ginger, we very much appreciate your life and service to the RBA and the Red Barn for sharing your time with us tonight. Ginger is going to share with us scholarships through the Red Barn, the RBAA, and Student Affairs, including the remarkable life of Florence Strickler, who was married to Dr. Strickler, who helped save the Red Barn with Lewis and several others, who is the official First Lady of the Red Barn. Thank you, Ginger.
All right. Well, George has prepared a lovely script for me to read. And of course, like everybody else, I want to go off the script. The first thing I want to reiterate that Jimmy said is that George is the most meticulously organized person any of us have ever met. And one of the reasons we have been so successful is because at every event that we, the Red Barn Alumni Association, hosts, sponsors, attends, go to, George puts a mason jar out that says, helping students. Helping students. It's what the Red Barn Alumni Association is all about. And if you haven't picked that up yet from the rest of this group, that's what we're here about. And over time, it has changed. You might have started originally for how best to have a good time, but now it's really about helping students and how we raise money. And I have been the scholarship chairman for a very long time. But Beth Denham, her son went to Afghanistan with my husband. I've known Mary Jo since college. It's also about networking. It's all about how you build those relationships with people so that when you put your hand out and say you need a little money, they want to give it to you. Or they feel like they are helping you so that you can help students. And that's really what I think the Red Barn Alumni Association spends most of its time doing. Although we do have our fair share of a good time. So now I'm going to tell you about scholarships that the Red Barn and the Red Barn Alumni Association and Student Affairs at the University of Louisville offer to students. So the RBAA was founded in 1985 with the untimely death of Harold Adams, our Assistant Vice President for Student Life in 1986. The RBAA and the Red Barn together began to raise money for scholarships for U of L students. Scholarships have become a vital function and a most important part of the RBAA and the Red Barn. Since 1988, the endowed Harold Adams Memorial Scholarship Fund, established in 1987, has provided 1,155 scholarships to U of L students, totaling $231,411.20. And only George could tell you that right down to the penny where every cent has gone. The purpose of the endowment is to provide scholarships for U of L freshmen. The Harold Adams Memorial Scholarship is to provide scholarships for U of L freshmen from Henry County, which was where Harold was raised and lived, and also to provide straight from the heart scholarship awards for students who just need some little boost to get them through whatever crisis they're facing. For the past 33 years, since 1988, the Lois Adams Rogers, who is Harold's spouse, has worked directly and tirelessly with eminent independent schools and Henry County High School, awarding Harold Adams scholarships in partnership with Student Affairs, the Red Barn, and the Financial Aid Office. Harold Adams was the Director of Housing and then became the first Assistant Vice President for Student Life and was an iconic student advocate at U of L. The SAC ramp, y'all have been on the Student Activity Center ramp, right? So the best way to get in the building is dedicated to Harold Adams, and that's why it's called Adams Way, and it has a memorial at the foot for Harold Adams. The RBA and the Red Barn have provided the following scholarships since 1989. 53 scholarships totaling $8,200 from the RBA gift account, 281 Florence M. Strickler scholarships totaling $126,169 from the Florence M. Strickler Endowment, 265 Torchbearer scholarships totaling $65,150 from the Torchbearer gift account and the Dennis C. Golden Torchbearer Endowment, and 81 George J. Howe scholarships totaling $21,834 from the George J. Howe Student Leadership Fund gift account and the George J. Howe Endowment. Student Affairs has provided 52 emergency awards totaling $16,143.50 from the Lewis and Louise Weiser Bornwasser Student Emergency Fund Endowment. It is a grand total of 1,888 scholarships awarded to U of L students totaling $468,707.70 since 1988. That's right. So now George would like me to tell you a little bit about the Scholarship Committee and the history and who they're named. So the Scholarship Committee has been around for 28 years. Our membership is Ellen Burton, Michael Cohen, Suzanne Galbraith, Glenn Giddings, Kenny Quisenberry, and Chase White. 3 of the members all work at the University of Louisville, and we've worked here for a long time, Kenny. The Red Barn coordinator, Kenny Quisenberry, tirelessly administers the awarding of scholarships through the RBAA and the Red Barn in a most timely fashion, so the students have the money as soon as we can get it to them. The RBAA and Torchbearer Scholarship Committee awards 5 scholarships each semester, which are 2 $1,700 Florence M. Strickler scholarships, 1 $500 Dennis C. Golden Torchbearer Scholarship, 1 $500 S.E. Jenkins Torchbearer Scholarship, and 1 $500 Bridget Pregliasco Torchbearer Scholarship for adult learners, which is a total of $4,000 awarded each semester. The 4 persons for whom these scholarships are named are Florence M. Strickler, Karen Howe, George's dear spouse, wrote a 1-page biography for the celebration of the First Lady of the Red Barn, Florence M. Strickler, on the occasion of the Red Barn's 34th birthday on December 12, 2003. As a graduate student at Florence, as a graduate student at Northwestern University, she met her future husband, Woodrow Strickler. 1938, that was a long time ago. In 1938, Woody Strickler came to the University of Louisville as an economics instructor. He and Florence married December 31st, 1938. They set up house in an apartment on 2nd Street in Old Louisville. From 1947 to 1951, she worked as Dean of Arts and Sciences as a student advisor, a job she dearly cherished because she found students so invigorating. In 1954, she was elected president of the U of L Women's Club. She was also active in the Women's Club of Louisville and served on its board. She served as a province president for Zeta Tau Alpha fraternity. It is no wonder that she was the recipient of the Mayor's Distinguished Citizenship Award. Dr. Strickler served 2 decades as vice president and executive vice president before being appointed president of the University of Louisville in 1968. During his tenure as president, U of L became a state university, obtained Shelby campus, the medical school was moved to the Health Science Center, and the Caldwell Tank Foundry on Belknap campus was acquired. The foundry became the Center for Student Activities and designated as the Red Barn. Ms. Strickler's interest in students never waning. She became a fixture at the Red Barn and was ultimately and affectionately dubbed by the Red Barn Alumni Association as the First Lady of the Red Barn. One of the 3 new stained glass windows in the Red Barn, designed by Ken von Rowan, was dedicated to her and Dr. Strickler. Mary Rumford, Chris White, Karen and George Howe, met with Mrs. Strickler at the Red Barn on the Sunday following the Kentucky Derby in 1999 to show Mrs. Strickler her window, which is that window over there. Yeah. First one. Which they celebrated with cookies and a champagne toast. In 1996, Strickler Hall was renamed the Woodrow M. and Florence Strickler Hall in recognition of her contributions to the university. Upon her death in December 2002, Mrs. Strickler bequeathed $800,000 to the university, $750,000 to create the Woodrow M. Strickler Endowed Chair in the College of Business, and $50,000 to the Florence M. Strickler Scholarship Fund, managed by the Red Barn Alumni Association. The university and the entire community are indeed indebted to Florence M. Strickler, former First Lady of the university, and forever the First Lady of the Red Barn, for the everlasting epitome of lady. Dennis Golden was the second vice president for student affairs at U of L, who in 1994 established the Torchbearer program. Dr. Golden was the driving force in the establishment of the National Panhellenic Council at U of L in 1992. Dr. Golden left U of L to become the president of Bond University in St. Louis. S.C. Jenkins was a graduate of the Municipal College, which was part of U of L. S.C. became the first African American to be elected from the borough of Queens in New York City to the state legislature in New York. S.C. was honored as a University Fellow of the College of Arts and Sciences. Richard Pregliasco, during her tenure in student affairs, became the assistant vice president for student life and was instrumental in the establishment of the Torchbearer program. Dr. Pregliasco was the driving force for Mary Rumford and George Howe moving to the Red Barn Programs Office in 1998. Dr. Golden, S.C. Jenkins, and Dr. Pregliasco are enshrined on the Red Barn Walls of Fame. In addition to providing these scholarships, the Red Barn for the past 18 years, including 2020, has provided funds presently in the amount of $500 each year to the recipients of the Dr. M. Celeste Nichols Scholarship, sponsored by the U of L Women's Center. The recipients of this scholarship are women who are graduate students who use these funds to pursue their degree through academic-related travel. And now, I believe Kenny thinks it's a good idea if we take a break. Everybody can get up and stretch and use the facilities. For those that may be new to the barn, the restrooms are in the back hall, over here to the left. Whatever.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Everybody
There's plenty of that.
I'd like to reach out to Beth. Thank you very much for reaching out to the Red Barn on behalf of your wonderful student, 9 of which are here. Also, thanks to Tim Denham very much for your help tonight for the free pizza. Our next presenter will be quick. His name is Chuck Earth. He's the treasurer of the RBAA. It has been for years. Chuck is retired, distinguished career in the commercial truck industry. Chuck, for years, has faithfully and tirelessly served the RBAA and Red Barn in ways you could not imagine, counting thousands of dollars for the RBAA fundraising events in each charge. Monitoring the holes in 1 for 24 golf scrambles, being a faithful donor to the RBA, cutting and preparing Camellia onions for 20 French Corn Fest for 20 years, donating the prize record collection to 45 Jordan General Store, all to benefit you like this. Chuck, we very much appreciate your life and service to the RBA and for sharing your time with us tonight. Chuck is going to share with us the establishment of 3 gift accounts and 8 endowments through the RBAA. An endowment is when you raise $10,000 and you endow it through U of L. And the money that is earned, a percentage of the money that is earned is available every year. That's what an endowment is. The endowment is there in perpetuity, meaning it's there forever. And the gift account, if you have a gift account, if you don't have $10,000 and you want to start a gift account, that's a good way to save for the endowment. You start with $1,000 and they give you up. But when you spend the gift money, it's gone. You have to keep replenishing it. So that'll help. Go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead, Chuck. Thank you, guys.
Make sure everybody can hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. Financial stuff tends to make people's eyes glaze over, so I'll try to be upbeat and keep this brief. So basically, the RBAA at the present time, we preside over 8 different endowments and 3 gift accounts. So I'm going to go over each one of the endowments and the gift accounts, but just very briefly. Keep in mind something, and this kind of, I think, expounds a little more about what Jimmy said and some other people. We've done a lot of different activities here, some big, some not so big, tailgates, birthday parties, crawfish boils, you name it, game watches. Somebody mentioned George's mason jars. George has, how many, 6, was it 6, George? 7 mason jars, and they probably have had more cash in those 7 mason jars than a lot of cash registers have had in their life. But at every event, those things are out. We're having a tailgate, they're out on the table, and people stuff money in, okay, and you never know. So, but they never come back in. My point is, I've seen events here where we haven't raised $100. I've seen events where we're way over $1,000. All during George's tenure, and Q is keeping up with this. We're talking about George being ridiculous. Every bit of that money is allocated depending on what George and Q determined which one of these endowments is in need of some money. We also have some payroll deduction plans for UL employees that they can contribute to these endowments. The overarching theme, what I want to tell you is, it's all a little bit at a time. The first one of these started in 1985. So if you put $25 or $100 or something last week, and then you talk about it at the monthly meeting, it doesn't really seem like a big deal. But we're standing here today, it is a big deal. So that's something that I think is really important to keep in mind. Okay, with the founding of the Red Barn Alumni Association in 1985 and untimely death of Harold Adams, Assistant Vice President for Student Life in 1986, the RVAA and Red Barn have together with Student Affairs established, actually by now it's 8 endowments and 3 gift accounts. They have provided to date a total of 1,888 scholarships, totaling $468,707.70, and provided a combined total of $47,855 for programs. So that's a total together of $516,562.70 since 1988. So that's pretty impressive. So the accounts that we have the RVAA gift account, which was established in 1985 for scholarships and programs. The Harold Adams Memorial Scholarship Fund, established in 1987. The Florence M. Strickler Endowment, established in 1992 for scholarships. The Torchbearer gift account, established in 1994 for scholarships. The Dennis C. Golden Torchbearer Endowment, established in 1996 with $10,000. And the side on the Golden, the Torchbearer, when Denny Crum was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Karen and George hosted the Fame Fest on October 17, 1994, sponsored by the RVAA to honor Coach Crum and raise funds for the establishment of the Torchbearer Endowment, featured Coach Crum and members of the Board of Trustees. So, by and large, the money that started that Torchbearer thing was started with Coach Crumb's induction into the Hall of Fame. The RBAA endowment, established in 2008 for scholarships and programs. The George J. Howe Student Leadership Gift Fund account, established in 2007 for scholarships and programs. The George J. Howe Endowment, established in 2008 for scholarships and programs. The Lewis and Louise Bornwasser Student Emergency Fund Endowment, established in 2010 with a gift from Louise and Louis Bornwasser to be used for student emergencies, which we've already gone over. So these first 6 of our endowments, as of the end of February, which is the last accurate data that I've got here, the total of those first 6 endowments was $710,981. The combined spending policy for these endowments for this school year is $13,303 and change. That's the amount that the university lets it be spent out of those funds to help students. In addition, in 2019, we established 2 more endowments, first of which Dr. Robert B. McGeechan and the Leela M. Payne Endowed Scholarship Fund to award scholarships based on financial need to full-time undergraduate students who are involved in any aspect of student life at U of L. Rob McGeechan is a founder of the Red Barn, was heavily involved in the early days of the Red Barn, and was a speaker at the 50th anniversary celebration. Secondly, established also in 2019, the Stuart Neff Student Leadership Endowed Scholarship Fund to provide scholarships to full-time students who serve on the Student Activity Board or Student Government Association in a defined leadership role. This endowment was established by Paul Latham and Alex Honeycutt, 2 of Stuart's most industrious SAV leaders, who established a successful event company even before they graduated. Alex Honeycutt spoke at the RBA, at the Red Barn 50th anniversary celebration, describing the huge effect that Student F had made on his life while serving on the Student Activity Board. The combined of what all of our endowments are now worth, plus what we've given away again since 1988, is well over $1 million. So we're very proud of that. The last item that I wanted to touch on were the corn fests, which I don't think anybody's brought up yet. So during the 80s and 90s, and by the way, I didn't get involved in the Red Barn until about 1999. So I'm told that it was like the guy that goes fishing, the old guy that works with the dock tells me he should have been here last week. So I'm told I missed all the good corn fests. I'm told when I started going, they could become pretty tame. Anyway, during the 80s and 90s, Karen and George hosted the Corn Fest. In case anybody doesn't know, a Corn Fest is a fête du maïs. It's a festival of the corn, and it coincides with Bastille Day, when the French stormed Bastille. Beginning in the 1990s, Karen and George hosted the Corn Fest for over 20 years to raise money for the U of L Montpellier Sister Cities gift account administered through the International Center. The French Corn Fest included the visiting students from Montpellier and their host families. Members of the RBA, most generous and faithful attendees as well, was Elaine Wise, Professor of Humanities at U of L for over 50 years, who established this gift account and promoted and collected funds at these events to benefit U of L students in this given county. And since they had started the French Corn Fest, they raised over $10,000 placed into the U of L Montpelier sister cities given counts from these corn fests. From all of the corn fests, there were $28,417.50 placed into endowments and gift accounts, including $13,520 that was placed into the Harold Adams Memorial Scholarship Fund. The menu on the Corn Fest included corn on the cob, hamburgers, and onions, all prepared and cooked on Red Barn grills by RBA volunteers, especially Jimmy Snyder, Ted Williams, myself, other people, and we have been doing this for over 2 decades. Unfortunately, the corn fests have come to an end. Perhaps somebody someday will pick up the ball and resurrect them. You're in the financial report. Anybody got any questions?
Okay, Chuck, thank you. Okay, guys, here real quick. The Red Barn's been in 5 books, 2 of which are national books, 3 of which are U of L. And in 1991, it published this book called Evolving Colleges. It's back there on the wall behind Steve. Anyway, there were only 14 schools in the whole country that were picked out, and the U of L was one of them. And this is what they said about the Red Barn. It might take about 10 seconds. This is 1991. The Red Barn, located on the edge of U of L's campus, is celebrating its 20th anniversary as the focus of many U of L activities. During that period of time, the Red Barn, in 20 years, has sponsored approximately 10,000 programs involving over 1 million students, faculty, and staff. It's generated more than $2 million in revenue. Perhaps the best illustration of this degree to which U of L students are encouraged to become involved and take responsibility for their own behavior is Red Barn programming. Students, including older, non-traditional students, who started the Crawfish Boil, design and implement innovative activities and programs with minimal student vision. Staff members demonstrated obvious caring attitude and commitment to students that are trusted to try new things on their own. Although the Red Barn is the center for U of L programming, its events are also attractive to U of L Louisville residents of all ages. The university is becoming known as a fun place to be, largely because of the Red Barn. The Red Barn then plays an important role in maintaining positive ties between the university and the city of Louisville. Okay, guys. Now, I'm not going to share all this with you, but there's an organization called the NPHC, and it started in 1992. And I'm just going to give you a little brief history of that because the Divine Nine are predominantly African American, 4 sororities and 5 fraternities which form the NPHC. I won't mention them all to you. The NPHC was established in 1992, as they indicated, with the help and support of Dr. Gold, the Vice President of the Student Senate. Red Barn has been totally supportive of all these Divine Nine, which were here in 2012. They were all here. It's called the Divine Nine. Parties at the Red Barn in the hundreds, homecoming parties at the SAC, DJs, DJ Deuce and Brandon William Weedy Bonds. Weedy spoke at the 50th anniversary of the Red Barn. We paid for the doo-wop PA. Quoting from the article, we honored the 15th anniversary of the MPHC back there on the wall when they were 15 years old, and there's also one in the MPHC suite. The Red Barn was instrumental in the production and financing of 27 consecutive Alpha Phi Alpha and MPHC icebreakers, all campus cookouts on the West Plaza, which became part of the Rock Week. 17 were sponsored by Alpha Phi Alpha and 10 by MPHC. We have provided for many activities inside the Red Barn, including the Martin Luther King Zeta Phi Beta program on Martin Luther King holiday. Okay, that's done. Number 11, Mary Jo White, the history of what we call the Student Activities Board, but back then we called it the Union for Student Activities, and then the Student Activities Board got changed again. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Jo. Almost done, guys.
When George arrived at U of L in 1970, the Union for Student Activities was born. And it remained in the Red Barn all that time. In 1985, the Student Government Association changed the name of the Union for Student Activities to Student Activities Board. And the Red Barn served as the home for both the USA and the SAB from 1970 to 1999. Student Activities Board now, offices are now located in the Student Activities Center, but the Red Barn, this office building supports everything that has to do with student activities. Just some of the activities that they used to do or have done in the past and will continue to do in the future once we get out of this pandemic situation that we're in. But in the 70s, there was a musical called Cruisin'. It was written by a guy named Jake Pitash. Pitash. And he was sang with the Oxfords. And some of these, I know that you all are too young to know who any of these people are that I'm talking about. But it was a musical that was performed here in the 1970s. In the 70s, there used to also be an annual Belknap Folk and Crafts Festival, which was very successful. And they sold crafts during the day and had live performers at night that came from, they were local and they also came from other parts of the country. And the lodging, most people just pitched a tent on a grassy field outside the Red Barn, which is not there anymore, by the railroad track, and they stayed. We've already touched on the Crawfish Boil, 36 of them. Most recently, I mean, it's been going on for 10 years. It was stopped, of course, due to pandemics. It was the WFPK and SAB Lab Lunch Concert Series at the Red Barn, and it began in 2009 through 2019. It was 11:30 to 1 o'clock, and they were transmitted on FPK from noon to 1 right from here. Thousands of cookouts. Yeah, thousands of cookouts with a lot of cookouts, some of which you may be familiar with. They have them here at the Red Barn, and they also have RSO fairs, and they also have cookouts at the HSC courtyard for students, faculty, and staff. In 1969, Louis Warnwasser purchased two 35mm projectors from the state surplus, and they put them in the Red Barn, and so we had movies shown several days a week, 3 or 4 days a week. And for all of us that worked here, we all learned how to run a projector, we could run movies. Switch those babies over, nobody knows that it was at all. That was part of what we did. But there were a lot of concerts that the Red Barn did. Popular acts at the time were Newgrass Revival, Doug Kershaw, John Prine. Last year we lost John Prine during the pandemic. J.D. Crowe, New South Moose Creek Symphony. There were a lot of benefit concerts, Save the Gorge, Save the Mountain Eagle, Fight Marble Hill. Some of this would be fighting again, I guess. There were also a lot of live music at the Red Barn, some of which Spyro Gyra, Tim Kreckle, Pat Metheny, Alan Rohde, and Nicky Clark. They were local. Gil Scott Heron. The Violent Femmes. In the 1980s, there was a series of Red Barn concerts, raised hundreds of dollars from causes included United Negro College Fund, U of L, University College Outstanding Achievers Scholarship Program, United Way, Crusade for Children, LRS Scholarship Program, Bridge the Gap, National Kidney Foundation, Kentucky Easter Seal Society, Funds for Sam Bush and his cancer treatment, Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolence, American Heart Association, Cosair Children's Hospital, and the USA for Africa. One of the fun things that they did in the 80s was we had a derby hostel, and it used to be down to Intramural Fields, and for the weekend we ran, people could come, pitch tents, stay. They used the intramural showers, took showers on the weekends. We charged them a little bit, but it was a lot of fun. Kids from all kinds of different colleges from all over the United States came and slept on the intramural fields with everything. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay, now we're moving on.
Okay, Steve Milburn's next. I'm gonna help him, but he's gonna go first. Dear friend of the colleague, Steve was master of ceremonies at the dedication of the Red Barn on December 7th and was superb. Steve is enshrined on the Red Barn Wall of Fame for his service to the RBA Red Barn U of L. Steve's career included being the director of athletic academic services and part of the student affairs, where he was awarded the National Award for his excellence. Steve was married to his wife, inspiring Red. Might have a little Red Barn in you for the Red Barn dedication on December 7th. Steve is retired, and his wife's name is Sandy, and she's a physical therapist still, and his son is Travis, Pensacola, Florida. Okay, Steve's going to tell you about a little bit, very little bit, about that night of December 7th, 2007. There you go. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, like George just said, my name is Steve Holden. It distracts me listening to all of this stuff, how much I remember and know. It's actually almost overwhelming. But part of that's because I graduated from U of L in 1972. I first stepped foot on campus in the fall of 1969, which amazingly coincides with what?
The Red Barn.
The beginning of the Red Barn. So, maybe the Red Barn and I had more in common than I ever even thought. But I tell you what, and I have to say, all the things you've heard tonight, all the stuff, I mean, it's just overwhelming. But it's all kind of tied into this building in a way. I've often said, and I think I said tonight at the dedication, these walls can talk. What in the world? All the stories and the things that they can say. So let me just say to you that this is really a special place. I cannot find words that would say how special it is. And here's the example right here. Look at all these people. How many here? And they're still here tonight just to tell you all something about it. I mean, that tells you really all you need to know about the Red Barn and what it's meant to be. And for years and years and years and years, I mean, I don't know how many from the early 70s through the 90s, you would meet people from U of L and they would talk about what they did and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you almost unanimously the Red Barn would come up in that conversation somewhere. So you cannot underestimate how important this place was to people. And the other thing that strikes me is, back in those days, the early 70s, before we got into the state system, you would not believe how terrible the facilities were here at the university. I mean, we didn't have anything. Student life was maybe the intramural program, maybe whatever the fraternities and sororities are doing, and here, I mean, really, right? There wasn't really much else going on. So if you had student life, this was pretty much it. And boy, they filled the bill. I mean, they did a lot of things. Somebody was mentioning all the music that was put on here. We had some tremendous bands. We had dances in here that literally could not dance. I mean, it was jammed with people. It was so, and the temperature would be 122 degrees. It was so hot here, all the people here. So this was an amazing place. The pictures on the walls tell part of that history. Most of those people, a lot of you wouldn't even know, but they all did great things and were part of everything that happened here. So, on, what was the date again? December 7th, 2007, the day that will live in infamy. We did a special thing, dedicated the Red Barn. And I'm going to quote from this thing that I need to read you. The article in the NACA, National Association of Campus Activities, Programming Magazine 2011 Back to School issue on December 7th, 2007, with the approval of the Board of Trustees, the Red Barn was dedicated as the George J. Howe Red Barn. I can't tell you how appropriate that is. I mean, all these people put in their effort and sweat too. But George was the glue, that's one metaphor, and he was also the engine that kind of made it work. of human and financial support for this event, established the George J. Howe Student Leadership Fund in 2007 and the George J. Howe Endowment with $10,000 in 2008. The purpose of the fund and endowment is to benefit U of L students, and that's really what the Red Barn was to do anyway. It was to benefit U of L students. Permission was granted to use an original watercolor painting of the Red Barn, completed by Gene Hadfield in 1989, for the invitations for this event and for note cards to communicate to donors and other interested persons. The driving force for this dedication to the Red Barn is Frank Bianzo, Assistant to Vice President for Student Affairs and now retired. It was Darrell Messer, President of SGA and trustee, who completely supported and endorsed the resolution of renaming the Red Barn that was unanimously approved by the Board of Trustees. I got to be the master of ceremonies that night. I'm very honored to say that I could do that. And one other thing I want to say before I forget. Doing special events or doing anything, you can do almost anything with nothing if you have the right idea and the creative ideas to do it. I can't emphasize enough. And it also helps to have people like this. If you can get some people like this to help you, then you're way ahead of the game. So it's a tremendous thing. If you can do amazing things, and people do it all the time. So as part of what the Red Barn was, I wanted to tell something about it that would try to encapsulate what I know to be true about being involved with the Red Barn as a student and as a staff member. I worked there from 1982 to 2007 at U of L, and I got totally involved in doing the things with the Red Barn as I was a staff member too. So I thought, what could I come up with that would be a nice way to say everything that the Red Barn means to people, our experiences that people have with the Red Barn. So there was a comedian back then, Jeff Foxworthy, who said you might be a redneck if you all know. You all know? Good, you know. Okay. So I came up with this idea and I called it, you might have a little red barn in you. Okay? So these are all things that I thought symbolized what it meant to be involved in the Red Barn. If you have ever worked hard for many hours and got paid little or nothing for it, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you believe that the most important thing about a university is the students, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you believe that everyone, somebody else said that earlier, if you believe everyone has something to offer, and that everyone should have some place to belong, and that everyone should be encouraged to become involved in something larger than themselves, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you believe in having fun, you might have some Red Barn in you. And if you believe in having fun, no matter how hard it is and how much work is involved, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you have ever awakened in the morning smelling like charcoal and burned hot dogs with corn stuck in your teeth, I know you have some Red Barn in you. If you've ever awakened in the morning and not known where you are, or how you got there, or who you were with, or all of the above, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you like the Rolling Stones, the Statler Brothers, or bad country music and good rock and roll, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you know who Country Dick Montana was, you might have some Red Barn in you. If you believe that having fun and good times are an integral part of being human and essential for growth of the human spirit, you might have some Red Barn in you. And if you understand that providing a place where fun and frolic go hand in hand with serious academic pursuits, and that learning and knowledge can occur in many different ways in a wide variety of settings, then you might have some Red Barn in you. So, that was my idea of what the Red Barn was all about, and I was more than happy to share it on George's night, December 7th, 2007.
I'm going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes. 50th anniversary of the Red Barn was on October 25th, 2019. We sold a whole bunch of these plates. Hold the plate up, Paul. And Gene Hatfield was he was the father of one of our students in graduate school, Zilda Hatfield, and she gave us permission to use that, and we made thousands of dollars using that for cards and for the plates as well. We made $8,000 that night. I'm going to also touch on the Born Watchers being all they have done, and you've heard a little bit from them, and they have, for the past 40 years, they have continued to support U of L and the Red Barn. They're both active members of the Red Barn Alumni Association and generous contributors that you've heard. They gave us a Dolby digital stereo system up in the Floyd Theater, which we would get from the Red Barn. It was valued over $25,000, and we talked about the $75,000 that they gave us to start the new endowment. We were on Mark Heber's, the month of the 50th anniversary, we were on ESPN radio, as Born Watchers and myself, talking about the history of the Red Barn. Louise and Louis have one daughter, Elizabeth Born Watcher, who lives in Louisville, is the traffic controller at Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Louise, Elizabeth, and Louis are all licensed pilots. Louise and Louis, we are eternally grateful to you for your lifetime of service and contribution to U of L, student affairs, the RBAA, and the Red Barn. Thank you. Okay, guys. We talked about the space, which is the old offices. Now it's Julie's space, and she showed it to you, so that's very, very important. Back in the hands of student affairs. We had the Good Morning Commuter program for 23 years. Through free donuts and coffee every Tuesday morning at the Red Barn. We had the Disability Resource Center cookouts for 37 different semesters. Dr. Dennis Best was given a $5,000 cash award from the Board of Trustees for being an outstanding faculty member. With the help of Tim Denham, raise your hand, Tim, who works at is executive with River City Metals. We raised over $62,000 from the aluminum cans through our church, and half of that money went to U of L because so many cans came from U of L, over 2 million cans. I'm going to read you one quote, and then Julie's going to wrap it up with one quote from Dr. Spence. He passed away, he and his wife passed away this past year, but they were two of the people who helped start the Red Barn. But Jimmy Snyder said this quote for the ages, and he said it on April 25th during the recording of an oral history that Susie Gagari helped us with. Thank you, Susie. It was printed at the end of the article by Cheyenne Hill, which we have a copy of here for you to see. This is what Jimmy said. Quote, none of us may be around in 50 years, but 50 years from now, this building is still here, it's still doing what it's done. It has done for the last 50 years, and that would be our greatest legacy. Okay, and now Judy Stevie is going to read you the quote that Dr. Spence sent to my wife, who was hospitality chair for the RBAA in 2011. Go ahead, Judy.
I'm a teacher too, and an ex-cheerleading sponsor. So I will enunciate loudly. It's a pleasure for me to read this quote. Denny and Crystal were good friends of ours over the years, and he was just a very special person. Dr. Spence said on January 6, 2011, to the RBAA, bless you all for the great things you folks do for U of L students and without any hope of recognition, advancement, or personal gain. To all the folks that I remember, and to those I have never had the pleasure of meeting, who would have thought that a gathering in the original barn, Caldwell Tank Company, with a band and peanuts and beer and amazed ABC agents would grow to such an honorable and caring enterprise. Best, Doc Spence, and sometimes a tad wiser. Go Hearts.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you so much, George. I just want to extend the thanks on behalf of all of our students.
Thank you.
Students, this is what it's all about. This is what the University of Louisville is all about. This is what the Red Barn is all about, and it's all about you. So just remember to always give that back and pay it forward. When you all become alumni and you're out there doing your work in the community, never forget our beloved alma mater. And I cannot thank George and the team, Penny, Julie, thank you all so much for opening up your doors. And I kept telling the students they're rolling out the red carpet for us. And you all certainly went above and beyond, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you all for your time and spending with us and putting together this incredible program. And we'll look forward to maybe one day hosting an event at the Red Barn. So thank you all so much. Any questions for any of you students before we dismiss? Any other questions? No. Not even you, Kelsey. You always have good questions.
I always have something. I have been wondering, y'all ever have to do anything to the floor? Is this the original?
It's a swimming pool under it.
That's right.
It's been hosed off and filled in and coated. This is, you can trip over it first.
We haven't survived it for a couple of years.
Yeah. It's just been the test of time.
The big time is when they air conditioned the Red Barn. Hell froze over twice that year.
Yeah. And you know, don't forget, you all have all heard about Margaret Mead, the sociologist, and she was one of the women I studied at college when I was at U of L under Dr. Lily Alice Akers.
Oh, yeah.
Those of you may remember her. She was probably my favorite professor, and she always said, quote, and I hope I don't get it wrong, never underestimate the power, you know, of what a small few people can do, because they can change the world. So clearly you all have helped change the campus and the community at the University of Louisville. And as a former student, I thank you all. So we appreciate you so much. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're certainly grateful to all of you all. So thank you again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.